My name is Sha'il. Welcome to Sha'il Reacts. For those that do not know, Keith Herrera is the former fiance of Viv Flores, Peter's wife, and he was a dirty little piglet. Now, let's get these disclaimers out the way before we get started. I will be using words like pig and piglet for those that are sensitive to the police. I'm not talking about our police. So if your daddy's a cop and your daddy's a good cop, God bless him. Much love to him, salutes, whatever. But to every pig cop, to every dirty cop, to every tyrant cop, they are a piglet, bacon, rat, whatever I want to call them. You know what I'm saying? And y'all can miss me. I made a movie. And I'm an actor, and there's a part where I shoot a cop. There's some people that are like, "Yo, I had to stop the movie when you shot the cop." But do you stop a movie when a baby blows up? Do you stop a movie when somebody get their dome peeled back that isn't necessary? When a cop peels somebody's dome back, do you stop watching the movie at that moment? So I don't understand those people. Those people are weird to me. You know what I'm saying? I think they have some type of sense of knowing guilt inside, like something bad might happen to my tyrant police officer family member, but that's not who I'm talking about. The cops that get kittens out of trees for old ladies, those are not the cops I'm talking about. I'm talking about cops like this asshole right here. I'm talking about cops like Jerome Finnagan. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. So please, that's my disclaimer. It is what it is. You don't like it, it's too bad. So again, Keith Herrera was Vivi's former fiance. He turned out to be a police officer and then turned out to be a dirty police officer and then turned out to be a rat against his dirty police officers. And he was plugged with Jerome Finnagan. And Jerome Finnagan is just a dirty piglet that ended up going down for a murder for hire scheme. Thief, a tyrant. There's these cops, right? And most of the time, usually they're white cops. Some of them are programmed black and brown cops. But there's usually these cops that they do these tyrant things. They do these criminal things. And they find a million different ways, just like a member of the cartel, just like a drug dealer, just like a killer, find 6 million different ways to justify their actions. You know what I'm saying? And look down upon the rest of us. And I'm here to call bullshit on them. Kiss my entire ass with your reason and your logic. It's skewed. You're a criminal like everybody else, and it just is what it is. And this Jerome Finnagan is no different. Probably top of the mountain with that, you know? There was things that I realized today that I knew about that I didn't realize his name or know that he was involved in. But he's a different type of, he's not a little pink piglet with a curly tail. He is a boar, an invasive species. You know, you got to put them down from helicopters like Ted Nugent does with the wild hogs in Texas. So he's not your regular little curly, domesticated pig. He's a tyrant, but you can't convince him of that. As far as he's concerned, he's the thin blue line, the last line of defense. I fight these dirty animals all day. I should be able to take a piece. We're going to read through the Keith Herrera, Jerome Finnagan indictment. The United States of America versus Jerome A. Finnagan and Keith Herrera. The United States Attorney charges 1. Defendants Jerome A. Finnagan, Keith A. Herrera were employed as police officers by Chicago Police Department and assigned to the Special Operations Section, an elite citywide unit, the SOS unit, a gang. That's all you need to know. Ganga. That's it. Jerome A. Finnagan and Keith Herrera were responsible for, among other things, enforcing the laws of the state of Illinois and the ordinances of the city of Chicago, investigating crimes committed in the city of Chicago, making lawful arrests, conducting lawful searches, collecting, preserving, and inventorying evidence, making truthful and accurate reports of their official activities, and testifying truthfully concerning their official activities. 2. From in or about 2003 until in or about 2006 at Chicago in the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division, Jerome A. Finnagan and Keith A. Herrera, defendants, I'm just going to call them Finnagan and Herrera from now on, herein, together with the other Chicago police officers assigned to the Special Operations Section, while acting under color of laws of the state of Illinois and city of Chicago, did willfully conspire and agree with each other to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate persons in the state of Illinois, namely certain persons in Chicago, in free exercise and enjoyment of a right and privilege secured by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, that is, the rights to be free from the deprivation of liberty and property without due process of law by one acting under color of law. Right? To injure, they were injuring, oppressing, threatening, and intimidating. All right? They were depriving of liberty and property without due process of law. That sounds like a hog to me. That sounds like a tyrant to me. 3. It was part of the conspiracy that defendants Finnagan and Herrera, together with other Chicago police officers assigned to the special SOS unit, I'm going to just call it SOS unit from here on out, used and agreed to use their positions and authority. You can't give a lame power. You give a punk power, and this is seconds before they abuse it. All right? You can't give a punk power. Anybody you see that abuses power, they were a punk that got power. All right? You give somebody that ain't a punk, that ain't a lame, somebody that got some sense, you give them power, they'll use that power for what that power is needed for. But you give a punk power, a punk's going to abuse it every time. Punk's going to abuse it every time. Used and agreed to use their positions and authority as Chicago police officers to unlawfully stop and detain persons, to unlawfully search persons and residents, to deprive persons of money without due process of law, and to cause persons to be charged based upon false evidence. Dirty, rotten scoundrels. That's what they are. Dirty, rotten scoundrels. 4. We still on page 1, y'all. Hey, holy shit. 4. It was further part of the conspiracy that defendants Finnagan and Herrera and other Chicago police officers assigned to the Special Operations Sections routinely and regularly performed unlawful arrests and unlawful searches for the purpose of conducting criminal investigations. And, when the opportunity arose, unlawfully took money for their own benefit from the arrestees and the places being searched, including the persons and places described below. Persons A and B. It was further part of the conspiracy that on or about February 14th, 2004, defendant Jerome A. Finnagan, together with other Chicago police officers, caused person A, whom they had arrested distributing 2 kilos of cocaine to person B, to disclose that a large quantity of cocaine was located in the garage on South Campbell Avenue in Chicago. And then defendant Finnagan and other Chicago police officers entered the garage and seized about 33 kilos of coke. You a coke peddler, dog. Mr. Finnagan, at that point, you were not the thin blue line. You was a drug dealer, like every other dirtbag drug dealer that you took down. You were just one that had power behind you, that had a badge behind you, that had a city behind you. You know what I'm saying? You a sucker. To sit on a high horse and think that you better than the people that put that 33 kilos in that garage, to think that is delusional. But that's, psychopath shit. It was further part of the conspiracy that defendant Finnagan, together with other Chicago police officers, caused person A to disclose that money was located in person A's residence on South Costner. And then defendant Finnagan and other Chicago police officers searched person A's residence and took approximately $30,000 to $35,000 in United States currency. All right. So let's look at it like this, Mr. Finnagan, or all of you thin blue liners, all of you Americas, right? You're like, yeah, man, we're going to go do the right thing, do it for this country because we love our country. Well, when you took that $35,000 out of that house, you took $30,000 away from America. You stole from your own country. You didn't steal from the guy in that, right? That money's evidence, right? That money was supposed to be turned over, right? So miss me with the America talk. Miss me with your flag. You might as well go take your flag down. You just a thief. You just a thief. You just a drug dealer. You just a drug dealer. You just a tyrant. That's just all that you are. Those things is what you are. It was further part of this conspiracy that Finnagan, together with other Chicago police officers, inventoried as evidence with the Chicago Police Department the 35 kilos of cocaine taken from person A. Okay, they invoiced it. Wait a minute. Inventoried as evidence with the Chicago Police Department the 35 kilos of cocaine taken from person A and the garage on South Campbell, and only $10,000 of the money taken from person A's residence. So you stole 20 grand. And caused person A and B to be charged based upon police reports which falsely represented that only 10,000 was taken from person A's residence. So y'all liars and thieves. It was further part of the conspiracy that defendant Finnagan, together with Chicago police officers, divided amongst themselves approximately 20 to 25,000 that they had taken from person A's residence and not inventoried as evidence with the Chicago Police Department because they're thieves. 9. It was further part of the conspiracy that on or about March 9th, 2004, defendant Finnagan knowingly testified falsely before the special grand jury of Cook County that only approximately $10,000 in United States currency was recovered from person A's residence because he's a liar and a thief. So he lied on the stand. Man, you swore on the Bible, bro? How could you be so judgmental? How could you sit on such a high horse? You swore on the Bible. You sat on the stand in front of America's judge. And you lied, bro. You dirty. Person C. So we done with A and B. It was further part of the conspiracy that on or about September 18th, 2004, near the intersection of 47th Street and Central Avenue in Chicago, defendant Jerome Finnagan, together with other Chicago police officers, made a traffic stop of person C without lawful basis and took from person C the keys to person C's residence on South Luna in Chicago. So they pulled the man over, took his keys. All right. 11. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan, together with other police officers, went to person C's residence and without a warrant or consent, unlawfully searched person C's residence and unlawfully took approximately $450,000 in United States currency. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan, together with cops, released person C and divided the $450,000 amongst themselves that they had unlawfully taken from person C's residence. So America didn't get none of that $450,000. Yeah, in February they took the $25,000, right? But they were like, man, we gotta give America 10,000 of this, because if we don't give America 10,000 of this, something bad gonna happen, right? And then he went and he lied and he testified on the stand that it was only $10,000, right? And he got away with it, right? So now next time when he got the $450,000, there's no giving America 10,000. There's no giving America 45 grand. There's no giving America 225 grand. Nah, they split up that 450,000 amongst themselves. Wow. Person D. It was further part of the conspiracy. On or about November 11th, 2004 was a busy year for this piglet. On North Laramie in Chicago, Finnagan and Keith Herrera, together with other officers, made a traffic stop of person D without lawful basis. Again, it's not like they're pulling people over because they ate a stop sign, they ate a red light, speeding, driving too slow, in the bike lane, swerving, switching. No, they're pulling people over because they feel like it without lawful basis. So that's illegal right there in itself. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan and Herrera, together with other PDs, went to person D's residence on West Haddon Street in Chicago, and without a warrant or consent, unlawfully searched person D's residence and took approximately 10 grand. So basically, if these fools saw you pushing a Mercedes, they was pulling you over and then going to your crib and hitting you for something. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan and Herrera, together with CPD, released person D and divided amongst themselves the $10,000 they had taken from person D. So you mean America could have got person D's bail money, you know what I'm saying? But instead, y'all just let him go and kept his money for yourself because you guys are tyrant thieves. Oh, but we're stealing from bad guys. No, you're bad guys stealing from bad guys. Now, who's the badder guy? Who knows, man? It was further part of the conspiracy that on or about January 14, 2005, after news accounts in which person D claimed that Chicago police officers stole money from person D's residence, defendants Herrera, together with other CPD officers, agreed to and did provide false statements to the Internal Affairs Division of the Chicago Police Department, denying an illegal search and taking the money and falsely claiming that a certain Chicago police sergeant was present at the search of person D's residence. So they went in there, they went to the police, and they lied to them too. So you'll judge me for lying to you assholes, but then you'll go and lie to your police. Y'all dirty. Damn, person E. It was further part of the conspiracy that on May 17th, 2005, on South Karloff in Chicago, Finnagan and Herrera with CPD made a traffic stop of person E without lawful basis. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan and Herrera with CPD went on to person E's residence. So these guys had their theme that they did over and over and over. They felt immune. They felt like they couldn't be stopped. You don't do this many in 1 year with that big a number on it and just think that you're going to keep going unless you're arrogant enough to know that you got privilege and you can get away with it. Jerome understands his privilege. Keith Herrera, he just a bootlicker that he's Jerome Finnagan in a brown suit because he ain't one of us. They went to person E's residence on South Karloff Avenue and without a warrant or consent unlawfully searched person E's residence and took narcotics and approximately $30,000. Finnagan and Herrera inventoried as evidence with the Chicago Police Department the narcotics and approximately $436. I wonder why that number. $463 of the money recovered from person E's residence and caused person E to be charged with possession of narcotics recovered from person E's residence based upon police reports which falsely represented that person E discarded narcotics when approached and that a total of only $463 was seized from person E's residence. They got $30,000 from person E, but they claimed $463. Herrera and Finnagan divided amongst themselves the approximately $29,500 unlawfully taken from person E's residence and not inventoried as evidence to the CPD. On September 9, 2005, Finnagan and Herrera on North Sacramento Boulevard made a traffic stop of person E without lawful basis and cited person E for traffic offenses which person E did not commit for the purpose of intimidating person E so that person E would not complain about the Chicago police officer taking money. So you're a liar, a thief, and you strong-arming now too. All right, here we go. August 12, 2005, Herrera and Finnagan, without a warrant or consent, unlawfully searched person F's residence on North Keeler in Chicago and unlawfully took 2 firearms, 12 kilos, 25 pounds of bud, and approximately $88,000 in United States currency. It was further part of the conspiracy that Finnagan and Herrera inventoried as evidence with the Chicago PD the firearms, the coke, the marijuana, and $1,800 of the $88,000 that was taken from person F and caused person F and G to be charged based upon police reports which falsely represented that person F and G were each arrested in possession of a firearm. He put gun charges on them and that the entry and search of person F's residence was lawful because person F had fled and been pursued into the So these guys was making up reports all over the place. You ran into the house with your hammer. Sure I did. Finnagan and Herrera divided amongst themselves $86,000 of the money that they had unlawfully taken from the person's resident, not inventory with CPD. Finnagan shared the money. It was further part of that Finnagan's share of the money unlawfully taken from arrestees in 2004 and 2005 totaled approximately $200,000. It was further part of the conspiracy. Herrera's money was approximately $40,000. So you was the pup. Jerome, your daddy Jerome, Keith's daddy Jerome was getting money before Keith. Keith, he left with $200,000, you only left with 40? What a mutt. What a mutt. Finnagan and Herrera, together with Chicago police officers, misrepresented, concealed, and hid, and caused to be misrepresented, concealed, and hidden the purposes of the acts done in furtherance of the conspiracy. In violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 241. So that was count 1. Count 2, the United States Attorney further charges The allegations of paragraph 1 of count 1 are re-alleged and incorporated as though fully set forth herein. So that's sealed. Here we go. Finnagan and other CPD officers assigned to the SOS were charged in the Circuit Court of Cook County with felonies based upon their alleged abuse of their position as CPD officers to unlawfully arrest and search persons, search residences, and seize property. August of 2007, Finnagan discussed with CPD Officer 1 paying someone to kill Chicago Police Officer number 2, who defendant Finnagan understood would likely be a witness in one or more of the state cases. Look at that. This guy with all these morals and all of this, moral fabric and all of this America. And y'all might think I'm just talking out my ass, but once we get to his podcast, we're going to hear how he talks. He talks the way the rest of them talk. This Mr. Officer, the last line of defense, the thin blue line, was going to pay someone to take out one of his own. Finnagan was a psychopath, a thief, a killer, an extortionist, a thug, a punk, all of the above. He's definitely a bad guy. He just don't know it. And most of them don't. You never have enough evidence to convince a fool. Finnagan discussed with Chicago Police Officer number 1 paying someone to kill Chicago Police Officer number 2, who defendant Finnagan understood would likely be a witness in one or more of the state's cases. September 18, 2007, Finnagan met with Chicago Police Officer 1, who was then cooperating with federal investigators. Is Police Officer 1 Herrera? I think Police Officer 1 might be Herrera, because I know Herrera, after being a little piglet, after being a boar, he became a little piglet again and started ratting. He became that hybrid, and he started ratting on his own filthy police officers. So I don't know if he's Chicago Police Officer number 1. We'll dig into that. Chicago Police Officer number 1, who was then cooperating with federal investigators in defendant Finnagan's residence and discussed the reliability and cost of hiring someone to kill Chicago Police Officer 2. During this meeting, defendant Finnagan suggested that Chicago Police Officer 1 could also try to find someone to kill Chicago Officer 2. On or about September 21st, 2007, at approximately 5:48 p.m., defendant Finnagan had a telephone conversation with Chicago Police Officer number 1, in which they agreed to meet. Defendant Finnagan and Chicago Police Officer 1 subsequently met in the parking lot, during which Chicago Police Officer 1 told defendant Finnagan that he had found someone to kill Chicago Police Officer 2 for money, but needed a photograph of Chicago Police Officer 2 in civilian clothes to give to the person who had been hired to kill Chicago Police Officer 2. Defendant Finnagan then gave Chicago Police Officer 1 a photograph of Chicago Police Officer 2 and instructed Chicago Police Officer 1 to wipe any fingerprints off of the photograph and to handle it carefully to avoid leaving any fingerprints on the photograph. Finnagan also agreed to provide Chicago Police Officer 1 with the new address of Police Officer 2 the next day. You're in, Papas. You went all the way in. On or about September 21st, 2007, at approximately 6:28 p.m., shortly after the meeting between defendant Finnagan and Chicago Police Officer 1 ended, Finnagan and Police Officer 1 had a telephone conversation in which they agreed that Police Officer 1 could come by Finnagan's residence immediately to get Officer 2's new address. September 21st, 2007, at 6:28, at Chicago in the Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division, Finnagan knowingly used and caused another to use a facility of interstate commerce, namely a cellular telephone operated on the interstate network of T-Mobile Communications, a cellular telephone provider, with the intent that a murder be committed in violation of the laws of the state of Illinois as consideration for the receipt of and as consideration for a promise and agreement to pay something of pecuniary value in violation of the Title 18 United States Code Section 1958. You went against America, Finnagan. You went against America. Count 3. So count 1 is all the filth that he did on the street, all the times that he went and stole money, pulled over people that didn't need to be pulled over, all of that, and then intimidation, all of that. And then count 2 is the murder for hire plot. Let's see what count 3 has to offer. Count 3, United States Attorney further charges Finnagan resided in Chicago, Illinois, and was employed by and received gross income from the CPD. And during tax year 2004, Finnagan also had and received approximately $174,500 in gross income by unlawfully taking money from arrestees for his own benefit. Right? That guy, boy, that's funny, man. I'm telling you, it's like nice guys finish last in this country, boy. I'm sure there's guys out there that do what Finnagan does, and they get medals pinned to them. On or about April 15, 2005, in the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division, Finnagan defendant willfully and knowingly made and caused to be made, subscribed and caused to be subscribed, a false 2004 United States individual income. He filed taxes. Form 1040 and accompanying schedules and forms on behalf of Finnagan and his spouse, which was verified by a written declaration that it was made under penalty of perjury, which contained the defendant's PIN, which returned in accompanying schedules and forms defendant Finnagan filed electronically and caused to be filed electronically with the Internal Revenue Service. So now they're getting them for the tax evasion. Finnagan did not believe his 2004 United States income tax return form 1040 and accompanying schedules and forms to be true and correct as to every material matter contained therein, in that Finnagan represented and caused to be represented on that return that the total income of Finnagan for the calendar year of 2004 was $46,012. Don't forget that $12. Gotta have the $12. That's all he claimed that year. Whereas Finnagan then and there well knew and believed that the total income of defendant for the calendar year was approximately $230,278. Finnagan having willfully omitted from his total income tax approximately $174,500 in gross income in the form of the United States currency Finnagan had unlawfully taken from arrestees for his own benefit. Count 4. Keith Herrera resided in Chicago and was employed and received gross income. We're going to skim through this. During the tax year, Keith Herrera also had received approximately $40,000 in gross income by unlawfully taking money from arrestees for his own benefit. On or about April 15, 2006, in the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division, Keith Herrera willfully, knowingly made and caused to be made, subscribed and caused to be subscribed a false 2005 United States tax return, which was verified by a written declaration that it was made under penalty of perjury. Herrera did not believe his 2005 United States tax return form and accompanying schedules and forms to be true and correct as to every material matter contained therein. And the defendant claimed a total income of $31,436. Whereas the defendant Herrera then well knew and believed the total income of defendant for the calendar year 2005 was approximately $72,236. He willfully omitted from his total income approximately $40,000 in gross income in the form of United States currency defendant Herrera had unlawfully taken from arrestees for his own benefit. Filthy dogs. All right, that's the bottom of that one right there. Woo! So, it's safe to say they were dirty piglets, right? I think it's safe to say that they were dirty piglets. Them boys were busy between 2004 and 2005, for real. I got a 60 minutes. They don't have a video here, but I got a 60 minutes story on Herrera. I guess that's him right there. Looks like one of those jerk offs. See, a lame. You can't give a lame like that power. You give a lame like that power. Psh. When 7 of the Chicago Police Department's most elite cops were charged with crimes including armed robbery, aggravated kidnapping, and home invasion, and one of them was even accused of planning a murder, the nation's second largest police force was thrown into turmoil. They were members of the unit known as SOS, the Special Operations Section, the department's answer to violence that once made Chicago the murder capital of the country. But what 60 Minutes has learned paints a disturbing picture of a chain of command that puts such a premium on getting guns and drugs off the street that officers felt justified breaking the law to do so. Another case of we told you you can do this, and then we tell you, oh, don't do that. You can't. You can't do that. Right? All right. One of those indicted officers is 30-year-old Keith Herrera. He's been telling his story in private to federal investigators. Now, out on bail, he tells it publicly to Katie Couric and takes 60 minutes inside a world where cops who did so much good ended up accused of doing so much wrong. What good? That's my question. If we did an audit, right? We did an audit of Jerry Finnagan and we did an audit of Keith Herrera and the good that they did while on the force. I'm willing to bet we don't find shit. Every day they woke up on the take. Every day they woke up to get something for themselves. Every day they did not get up to protect and serve. They got up to extort. They got up to intimidate. They got up to steal. They got up to lie. They got up to strong arm. That's what they woke up for. You know what I'm saying? So I would say they did no good. Zero good. They saved no kittens from a tree. Prosecutors have said Herrera and his partners were bold, brazen, and malicious. His response? I say I was doing my job. I went to work every day, put my star on, put my gun on, and got the bad guys off the street. I was doing my job, and I was told I was doing a good job. You're a cuck. You convinced yourself of that. You let your daddy, Finnagan, convince you of that. Until a year and a half ago, Herrera was a rising star in the Special Operations section. But his promising career collapsed when he and 6 of his partners were accused of terrorizing the very streets they were policing. They weren't policing the streets. They were only terrorizing. Were they going up against the baddest of the bad? Yeah, with help. With all the help they can get. And maybe not so much. I don't know that person E, person A, person D. I don't know that those were bad people. I don't know that those were gang members. I don't know. I've known drug dealers in my life that are not killers. They stay in their lane. They're hustlers. That's what they do. You know what I'm saying? They sell dope. That's it. His partners were accused of terrorizing the very streets they were policing, busting into homes without warrants, making illegal arrests, and holding people hostage until they handed over guns and like that's what the legal system's there for, is to put people in jail, to get people off the streets that are doing this, that, the other, and but there's laws involved, bro. You don't just steal, you don't just take, you don't just beat, you don't just maim, you don't just kill. You at that point you one of them. And now it's just, and you're cheating, like you weak punk. With the help of judges, mayors, lawyers, you just cheating. Without warrants, making illegal arrests and holding people hostage until they handed over guns and drugs, all at the time the SOS unit had virtual autonomy in Chicago's worst neighborhoods. Asked what his marching orders were, Herrera says, get the guns and get the drugs off the street, no matter what, at any cost. Just get them off. Just get them off, Keith. Just get them off, you jerk off. Herrera says the mandate from his bosses was clear. The ends justify the means. SOS hauled in big caches of weapons and drugs, and across the city, the crime rate plummeted. For those that are not in Chicago that don't know, there's an illegal warehouse location where cops were taking and torturing people and questioning people illegally. They weren't in a police station. They were doing whatever they want. They were doing whatever they want. Again, they're a gang with favors, a gang with power, a gang with help from the judges and the politicians. That's all they are. Policing the way we... hold on, I got to put my Herrera voice on. Policing the way we did it, there were just certain steps that you had to take. We're dealing with convicted felons. We're dealing with bad people. We're dealing with drug dealers. If you want these people to go to jail, you have to cross the line sometimes. Get your ass up. Asked what his supervisor thought of his techniques, Herrera tells Couric, keep it up. As long as you got the guns, as long as you got the drugs, as long as you're getting the bad guys, keep it up. And if they tell you to keep it up, you keep it up. Well, they're criminals and piglets too. He says it was like making a deal with the devil. Absolutely making a deal with the devil. For example, if a suspect tossed a gun to avoid arrest, Herrera says it was obvious how to make that case stick. Lie. Say the gun never left the suspect's hand. Do you want that guy that's running down the street that just shot somebody to not go to jail because he threw the gun? Or do you want him to go to jail because he never let the gun out of his hand? He knows what he's got to do, and I know what I got to do. Now, mind you, he's saying all of this after he was a dirty cop, and then he's saying all this after he was a rat. So it's like he's still sitting on a high horse. And that's what I mean about the delusion of these people. It's delusion. Katie Couric says, I get it, but it's also making stuff up. It's not making stuff up. It's doing what you got to do to put bad guys in jail, Herrera argues. Couric remarks, changing the story. Herrera says it happens. That's all I can tell you. So there are no Boy Scout police officers doing it by the book out there, Couric asks. Herrera says maybe. This isn't, Podunk, Iowa. This is the city of Chicago. You got to do a job. And he says nobody taught him how to do that job better than his daddy. His daddy. Officer Jerry, who probably don't want you to know his name was Jerome. His daddy's name probably Jerome. I don't know. Jerome in the house. And he says nobody taught him how to do that job better than his daddy, Jerry Finnagan, a decorated Chicago cop Herrera had known and admired since he was a child. It was his daddy for real. Since he was a child. Finnagan is now the alleged ringleader behind the raids that brought down the SOS unit. To me, he was like Superman. He was one of the best cops in the city. This guy sounds like a cuck, though. Don't he sound like a cuck? To me, he was like Superman, my daddy. He was one of the best cops in the city, Herrera says. Herrera says Finnagan took him under his wing. And sometimes people call me Little Jerry. I'm telling you, it was his daddy. I called it. I didn't even have to know that Finnagan was his daddy, but it's his daddy. Sometimes people call me Little Jerry. And look at him, little Keith Herrera, so happy to be Little Jerry. Caught on a security video, Jerry Finnagan and some 20 officers were taped during an SOS raid on a bar. I got to find that tape. They frisked the customers and then arrested one of them all inside the bar, but the police report told a completely different story. That the man was outside on the sidewalk and was arrested holding an open bottle of Corona beer. Now, I understand. And a bag of cocaine. When the security video surfaced, the case was thrown out. They've done that to me before. They just grab you in front of the crib and say you was doing this, that, or the other. Just lying pigs. Prosecutors have dismissed roughly 150 other cases made by the indicted SOS officers, including Keith Herrera. Dismissed. 150 stories. So you mean that was 150 bad guys? Not one of that 150 was someone that didn't deserve it. Was it a well-known practice in SOS to write things in police reports that didn't actually happen on scene, asked Katie Couric. Creative writing was a certain term that bosses used to make sure that the job got done, Herrera says. I didn't just pick up a pen and just learn how to do this. Bosses, guys that I worked with that were older than I was, that had time on the job, you learn this stuff. It's taught to you. This is how it's done. This isn't right. Put this in there. And you got to listen to them. Nobody say you need to chill out a little bit here, Couric asks. Not once, Herrera says. I got high fives and honorable mentions and department commendations. You were happy. All your daddies patted you on your head and told you, job well done. Treat you like a good little pup. And he wasn't just getting commendations. Misconduct complaints against Herrera and other members of the SOS unit were amongst the highest in the entire department, and almost nothing was done. The department's own data shows those officers were disciplined less than 1% of the time. Federal authorities are now investigating what role police supervisors and the Internal Affairs Division had in letting those cops stay on the street. I'm sure. Police Superintendent Jody Weiss, Jody, former head of the FBI in Philadelphia, was brought in by Chicago Mayor Richard Daley earlier this year to overhaul the department. Considering the low rate of disciplinary action against the SOS officers, are you concerned that an atmosphere existed where members of the department thought they could commit misconduct with impunity? Couric asks. I know she's talking to Jody Weiss. I think there were this is Jody Weiss. I think there probably was an atmosphere of that. There was an atmosphere that, hey, we're above the law. We're getting great stats. We're pulling guns off the streets. We're taking down drug dealers. Yeah, maybe we are breaking the rules. Maybe we are breaking the laws that we're hired to uphold, I add. But look at what we've accomplished. They lost their way, and it saddens me because supervisors have a lot of power, and if they're encouraging their people to engage in misconduct or actually in some instances to even engage in criminal activity, that's horrific in my eyes, Weiss says. By the time Weiss arrived in Chicago, the SOS unit had been disbanded, but he found the whole department needed shaking up. An off-duty police officer seen in the surveillance video is facing criminal charges for kicking and beating a female bartender half his size. You guys are just men, just America. She claims she was kicked and beaten because she wouldn't serve him another drink. Cops videotaped in another incident have been charged with attacking a group of businessmen who were playing pool. They're a gang. That's it. They're a gang. Over the past 5 years, the city's paid out $155 million to settle claims of police misconduct. Throw that $155 million on the street, you have less drug dealers. Throw it every year. Over the past 5 years, the city's paid about $155 million to settle claims of police misconduct and brutality. One man stands to collect $4 million after a jury found 2 officers liable for sodomizing him with a screwdriver. The case is under appeal and is among the many incidents outside the SOS unit that led Superintendent Weiss to replace 21 of the 25 top commanders on the force. Straight criminals. Again, maybe your Theo is not a criminal, but if he seen this and he ain't say nothing, he just as bad as these fools. But amid all of this reform, Chicago has also seen a spike in shootings and murders. Do you worry that a greater emphasis on playing by the rules will result in a higher crime rate? Couric asks Weiss. You know, I am, the superintendent admits. I don't ever want police officers to think that they have to be timid. They've got to be aggressive. They got to fight crime. All we really ask them to do is don't engage in brutality. Don't become corrupt, and don't compromise your integrity. Good luck with that. Keith Herrera says he reached a point where he went way over the line. The first time, he says, was after he and some other cops searched the house and money was stolen. Driving back to the station, he says a few $100s landed in his lap. I looked at it and I said, "Thank you, Daddy." His dad was a cop too. So that's his dad's partner. Herrera's dad was a cop too. Who was his partner? Finnagan? No, that Finnagan's his real daddy. His dad's partner made Lil Herrera. We're going to look and see if there's any resemblance to them. First time, he says, was after some cops searched the house and the money was stolen. Driving back to the station, he says a few $100s landed in his lap. I looked at it and I said, "You guys kidding me?" What did they say when they threw the money in your lap? They said, "Shut up and take it." He says it was tough to justify that, and it took a lot. You know, you think to yourself, all right, I'm doing good. I got to be where I want to be. And now this. Do you just say, I'm going to tell a supervisor? No, he says. And you just tell yourself it's not going to happen again. It's a one-time thing. No one's going to know. And if someone does find out, we'll be okay. Our bosses, our daddies will take care of it. A one-time thing? It's not going to happen again, Couric remarks. Correct, Herrera says. But he says it did happen again. Herrera says it kept happening until one day he admitted to Couric he took roughly $30,000 from the safe of a suspected drug dealer and divided it amongst the officers he was with. Asked if Jerry Finnagan was part of this group, Jerome. All right, Jerome's, and your name's Jerome. Your mama named you Jerome. I'm going to call you Jerome. Couric asked if Jerome Finnagan was a part of the group. Herrera says yes. Was he in charge? Couric asked. He wasn't a sergeant. He didn't have the white shirt on, but he was in charge. That money was a fraction of the hundreds of thousands of dollars prosecutors say Finnagan, Herrera, and the SOS officers stole. Until 7 were arrested for felonies that could land most of them in prison for up to 30 years. They've all pled not guilty. But for Keith Herrera, the trouble didn't end there. Last summer, he says Finnagan approached him with a shocking proposition. He wanted Herrera's help in killing 2 former SOS. So, officer number 1, who was snitching in the paperwork, is in fact the son of Jerome Finnagan, Mr. Keith Herrera, who turned on his Superman father, Jerome Finnagan. Herrera's help in killing 2 former SOS officers who would be testifying the case against them. So the other piglets became hybrid piglet rats too. Jerome Finnagan decided that they didn't need to be breathing anymore, Herrera says. Asked what his first reaction was, Herrera tells Couric, thought he was nuts. I'm like, this has got to stop. Now you're going to take somebody's life? A guy that we worked with for years, that I know his daughters, I know his son. You're going to kill them? You know what? You can indict me all you want. You can throw me back in jail all you want. But right now, to me, I don't have my star or my gun. But I'm still a cop. I'm going to stop you from doing this. There's no fucking way I'm going to let you do this. Stripped of his badge, Herrera says he had saw. So he was already stripped of his badge by then when this went down. Stripped of his badge, Herrera says he saw a chance at redemption and did something virtually unheard of for a Chicago cop. He broke the so-called blue wall of silence. How? How is this so-called unheard of when we just heard that 2 of the seven guys that trusted each other enough to go rob everybody together start ratting on each other? So don't talk to me about virtually unheard of, the blue wall of silence. No, y'all are just like everybody else, man. Y'all no different than a subway rat, man. Same thing. We keep giving these dudes like they're some kind of Superman. They're not Supermen, bro. You take a coward and you put a coward on the street in street clothes, he's a coward. You put a coward in a badge and a gun, that's a coward with a badge and a gun. It's just what it is. He saw a chance at redemption and did something virtually unheard of for a Chicago cop. He broke the so-called blue wall of silence and went to the FBI, offering to wear a wire against his daddy, Jerome Finnagan, his mentor. Over the course of several days, Herrera secretly recorded their conversations. Who was he planning on doing the deed, Couric asked. He didn't tell me specific names. He called it a paint job. And he just said some really good painters. We never have to paint again. That's what he said. Herrera says he petrified during this process. Or he was petrified. Again, the people from the spell check people didn't do their job either. I had the FBI on speed dial on my phone, he says. As the plan took shape, Herrera says Finnagan added 2 more officers to the hit list. So he was going to smoke the whole team. He said, if we get to take care of these 2 first, we might as well take care of everybody else. He figured I'd just drop the bag on everybody. So he was willing to kill 4 Chicago police officers. Yes, says Herrera. To keep them from testifying against him, Couric asks. That's correct, Herrera says. As a result of Herrera's assistance, U.S. State's Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald charged Jerome Finnagan with plotting a murder for hire, an allegation he denies. Since then, Finnagan has been cooperating with federal prosecutors, another hybrid piglet rat, as has Keith Herrera, in the investigation of the Chicago Police Department. Meanwhile, Mayor Richard Daley has already established a new office under his authority to handle complaints against police officers, which he says would help prevent future scandals. He ain't been around in a long time. We done had enough mayors since then to complain about that, and enough corruption stories. See, Chicago's not named the Windy City because of the wind that'll knock you on your ass. Chicago's named the Windy City because of the blowhard politicians blowing hot air all over the place. And that's a fact. What troubles you most about what's been going on in the police department, Couric asks. Oh, she's talking to Daley. Well, what troubles me the most, Daley goofy ass, is that one little incident can overshadow all the good things that the police department may do. You're right. But it's not a little incident. And it's only a little incident because it's the one you caught. It's a huge incident when you think about all the ones that are still out there that you didn't even touch on yet. Ah, there you go. But it's not just one little incident, Mr. Mayor, Couric points out. But maybe it's 10 or 15, the mayor said. It could be 10 or 15 or 20. But every day we're answering thousands of calls. So you don't allow a series of things to overcome the police mission of serving and protecting the people of the city of Chicago. Blowhard, politician, talked around her. Shut up. Basically said, shut up, Katie Couric. Shut your mouth. Keith Herrera still faces the possibility of prison time and is hoping prosecutors will show him some leniency for his cooperation. He knows he'll probably never be a street cop again, but he wants someday to tell his story to recruits at the academy. Ongoing thing. Okay? Again, we were talking about Jay Flores teaching cops about the drug trade. Frank Abagnale, same deal. Same thing this guy wants right here. You know what I'm saying? This guy don't want to put down his good guy image. So he was a bad guy. Now he wants to take the bad guy image and use it for good. This guy right here. This guy. Keith Herrera still faces the possibility of prison time, blah, 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 for his cooperation. Police superintendent told us he'd welcome that idea. Of course he would. I like to put a picture of myself up on a board when I was in the academy, smiling. Oh, hold on, I got to do his stupid voice. I like to put a picture of myself up on a board when I was in the academy, smiling, thinking I'm going to save the world with my daddy Superman, Herrera says. And then I'd like to put up a picture of me with my mugshot, not happy, looking miserable without my daddy. And I'd like to ask them, do you guys have any questions? Because I got a lot of answers for all those questions. Whatever question you have, I'm going to have an answer for. Of course, you're a liar and a thief. You're willing to say anything. And they're going to learn from me. I know they would. These dudes be fucking full of themselves, man. Full of themselves. Okay? Could that be his daddy? Let's see. I see a resemblance. Quite possibly his daddy right there. Hold on. Let's try something. I got one more for you. Watch this. Hold on. Hold the phone. Give me 1 sec. What do you guys think? Tell me in the chat. Does that look like his daddy? Do they look like they could be father and son at that time? They look like they could be father and son. Superman and little Superman right there. Now, by this time, Finnagan was already in prison for the murder for hire plot on the officer.
Chicago police have a new controversy on their hands today.
It revolves around a racially charged photo more than 10 years old and apparently was part of an investigation last year and was published by the Sun-Times late last night. Fox 32's Joni Lum is live outside police headquarters at 35th in Michigan this morning with more on what's going on with the department and why they wanted to keep it a secret, Joni?
They did, but the Sun-Times was able to obtain it. The photograph revives some negative images about the Chicago Police Department, and Superintendent Gary McCarthy has not responded to our request for official comment, but it's reportedly, he is reported to have said that he's disgusted by this photograph, and he supports the firing of both of the officers who appear in this picture, which is quite old, by the way. The Sun-Times released the picture on its website.
Come on, we got to fire these guys. Forget the fact that one of them is in prison.
Night after getting it through
this right here, this guy right here is in fact Mr. Jerome Finnagan. This right here is a young black man wearing antlers with his tongue hanging out his mouth, and this right here is another piglet.
Court case involving Officer Timothy McDermott, who's pictured on the right. He was fired for this photograph, and he's appealing to get his job back. On the left is Jerome Finnagan, who went to jail on an unrelated murder for hire scandal. They're holding rifles, standing over an unidentified African-American suspect wearing antlers. It's estimated this picture was taken between 1999 and 2003. It's not known who he is or who took the photo, but this picture suggests that the man is a hunting trophy, and that's adding to the current conflict between police and minority communities at a time when the department is taking steps to repair those relationships. Superintendent McCarthy's been meeting with community leaders in his listening tour to try to get a better relationship with people in Chicago so that the communication lines can be open and that crime fighting can be more efficient. But he hasn't said anything to Fox 32 News publicly about this photograph just yet. We do have a request in for an official statement. Live at Chicago Police Headquarters, Joni Lum, Fox 32 News.
That just shows you the kind of people that these animals are. All right? The kind of people that would take a grown man and pose him as an animal and stand over him with their shotguns like they did something, like they hunted him. Jerome Finnagan, Keith Herrera, Piglet number 1, Piglet number 2. You guys are just tyrants like the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? It could have easily been you on the ground with your tongue hanging out your mouth and antlers on your head. You're no different than anybody else. Every person that you've ever called a piece of shit in life, you're just as piece of shit as they are. Absolutely. Chicago Sun-Times has obtained a disturbing photograph in which 2 police officers had placed antlers on a black drug suspect and then posed over him with rifles as if they were hunters and he was their prey. The paper reports that last fall, after an investigation into the image, a police board voted 5-4 to fire one of the officers. So four of those people on that board decided to vote the other way. It just shows you what we up against here. The Piglet Brigade has supporters. You know, there's people out there that want the Piglet Brigade to win. They want them to be able to violate your rights, to violate the Constitution, to violate you as a human being, your human rights, everything. They want that. Board voted 5-4 to fire one of the officers, Timothy McDermott, arguing that appearing to treat an African-American man not as a human being but as a hunted animal is disgraceful and shocks the conscience, said Mayor Rahm Emanuel when asked about the photo yesterday. As the mayor of the city of Chicago to that individual, good riddance. You don't belong in the police department. By the time the police became aware of the image, the second officer in the photo, Jerome Finnagan, was already serving a 12-year jail sentence for running a gang. Sometimes you said it right. For running a gang of corrupt cops involved in robberies and home invasions, as well as himself participating in a murder-for-hire scheme. Officer McDermott was never implicated in any of those crimes. The photo, which was taken in a West Side police station sometime between 1999 and 2003, had been turned over to police by federal prosecutors in 2013 following Finnegan's prosecution, after which police officials questioned and then moved to fire McDermott. In his interview with Internal Affairs, McDermott said that by participating in the photo, he made a mistake as a young, impressionable police officer who was trying to fit in, eat a dick, okay? Because what about that kid that joined the gang trying to fit in, right? And you ran him down with your car, or you planted something on him, or you lied on him and got him more time and ruined his life. How about him? We supposed to sympathize for him? I'm sure you wouldn't preach for us to sympathize for him, so why should we sympathize for you? Fuck out of here. To fit in, the department, as well as McDermott's lawyer, had tried to keep the photo hidden from the public, right? The department, as well as McDermott's lawyer, the department, right? What I just tell you, that the Piglet Brigade has a support system, right? The department, as well as McDermott's lawyer, had tried to keep the photo hidden from the public, but a judge denied the city's request to seal it. The identity of the man posed in the photo is still unknown. Evidently, the streets know it. McDermott, who was a detective at the time of his dismissal, is the stepson of a powerful former police superintendent and the recipient of 74 department awards. Of course. McDermott, who was a detective at the time of his dismissal, is the stepson. Daddy, was Jerome your daddy too? Of a powerful former police superintendent and the recipient of 74 department awards. He was also defended in 4 federal lawsuits accusing him and other officers of official misconduct. The city paid settlements in 3 of those cases, and a jury awarded damages in the 4th. McDermott is appealing his dismissal, though he might want to get a new lawyer, as the Sun-Times article illustrates. What's to say this individual wasn't performing at a Christmas pageant in the district and was dressed as a reindeer and had taken the reindeer suit off? Again, I don't mean to make preposterous arguments, but the charges in this case, they warrant that, attorney Daniel Herbert said. He also compared the photo of an episode of Seinfeld in which Jerry is wrongly accused of picking. Some of these lawyers, I don't know how y'all do it. I think they go in there just to create confusion by saying a bunch of stupid shit. Because every time I watch a trial, there's a Yahoo lawyer that just goes in there. He say dumb shit. Vernon Himes, what up from Kentucky? Salutes Vernon Himes. Kentucky salutes. Herbert said there was strong evidence. So, anyways, Daniel Herbert said he also compared the photo to an episode of Seinfeld in which Jerry is wrongly accused of picking his nose. Herbert said there was strong evidence in the photo that the African-American man was a willing participant and was not coerced to pose with antlers. He even questioned whether the guns were really broomsticks carved to look like weapons. Earlier this month, Chicago agreed to pay more than $5 million in reparations to residents who were tortured at the hands of the city police commander and his subordinates. Also, a recent Guardian investigation reported that city police have operated a black site-like interrogation center. We're going to look into that too, because that's the warehouse I was telling you about. It's a warehouse that they were using in Chicago to interrogate and torture people. The Guardian's investigation reported that city police have operated a black site-like interrogation center where suspects were routinely denied their rights. And according to the Better Government Association, an Illinois watchdog organization, Chicago has paid more than $500 million in police misconduct settlements over the past decade. Unbelievable. All right, so remember that when we get into this podcast, here, this old dog right here, when we get into this podcast right here, Finnagan's Take. Think of the name, Finnagan's Take. Finnagan is on the take. Finnagan takes. All right. When we get into this podcast and he tries to convince you that he's a human being, and he tries to convince you that he's better than you or the criminals in your family, or he's better than the cops that, the weak cops that are in your family, when he tries to convince you that in this podcast, just remember this picture right here. Remember this picture right here. The picture of him. See if I can make this bigger. There you go. Oh, there you go. The picture of him, right, with a rifle. Now this looks like a broomstick. This looks like a rifle. All right, with a black man posing with antlers on his head. Okay, when this guy right here tries to convince you he's not subhuman, just remember this picture right here. Right? This picture's gonna be. I'm gonna pull this up every time he tells a sob story. Every time he does, I'm gonna remind you who he is. All right? Just understand that. Besides being Herrera's daddy.